Hello and welcome to the Trailblazers, the show where we highlight women who couldn't find what they needed and went ahead and built it anyway. Today we're talking about sports kits and why so much it was designed for boys and then handed to girls and expected to work anyway. And my guest today turned her daughter's experience of wearing ill-fitting boys' gear into a women's first cricket wear brand so players can focus on their game and not their kit. She's the founder and CEO of Lacuna Sports, a performance cricket wear company created by women for women. And she's on a mission to remove barriers to movement and ambition. My guest today also serves as a trustee of Bat for a Chance, the cricket charity improving access to kit worldwide. Leigh Burns, welcome to the show.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I would love to know, because we're a cricket mad family in this house. I can't tell you how cricket mad we are. And when I told my husband I was going to be interviewing you today on the show, he was like, oh my God, how did I not know about this? And he's on Google in 10 seconds, right? What inspired you? And I know you said it was your daughter. What in particular inspired you to launch Lacuna Sports? And what was the gap, I guess, that you were determined to fill?
It's interesting because I did not come from a cricket background. I grew up in the US. I played loads of sport, and I actually played sports that were traditionally male and had some of the same challenges that I wound up facing with Lacuna. But I just left a corporate environment, was spending a bit more time around my kids. And my daughter found cricket at school, and she said, I really want to go to the cricket club. We played at school. It was amazing. I really think it's fun. I'd like to do it. And I said, oh, I didn't know girls played cricket. Okay, we already belonged to a club for my sons. And we went down. She loved it. And, there's kind of two things that happened. One, I just noticed from more probably my commercial brain, but also my brain, when I looked out and saw the girls playing, they were all athletes. They were all girls that she swam with or that, she was in kind of county or regional level sports with. So there was something like, oh, there might be something to this. These are girls finding cricket who are already in other sports. And then as Caroline got better and really started to love the sport and became completely cricket mad, she had joined a boys' academy. And this is about, 6-7 years ago. And she was the only girl at the time, or at least on that day. And she went in to bat and was told to put in a box. And, all the boys are laughing and they're throwing boxes at her. And, it's all a bit of a joke. And she just said, well, I don't have the bits. Why am I doing that? And, she put one in and batted. But I just kind of thought, that's incredibly strange. And my corporate career had been in remote site medicine and security. And so I called some of the doctors I used to work with from war zones and different things and said, should a girl wear a box in cricket? And it was a female army doctor. And she said, absolutely not. There's no need. This is just men focusing on their thing and not thinking about girls. And so, around that same time, Caroline was also wearing white trousers and hitting puberty, and you could see your days of the week underwear, and you move from being a little girl into this kind of preteen world, and then you feel assessed. And so I think it was, one, as a mom, seeing my daughter feeling a bit exposed, and then two, as a businesswoman, thinking this is a massive opportunity. Like, this is the fastest growing sport for girls at the time. There's all these girls coming in, and the first thing they're met with is all of these little micro messages of you don't belong. And it just seemed absolutely silly. And so I just, I did a little bit of research, made some calls around the world because I figured the Australians had figured it out or somebody, and realized that literally up to international level, women and girls were expected to play in boys' kit. And no one had ever really thought about it. And it was causing girls to not want to play.
And I totally get that. And I think a lot of that is, and I know this from my own daughter, cricket whites, for example, they're not fit for purpose in terms of the way that they are put together or the way that they're built. So I'm interested to know what makes Lacuna's pieces truly female specific. Is it the fabric, the way that it's cut, the pattern blocks?
Yeah, so if you think about the kit industry, particularly around something like cricket is the second biggest sport in the world, and there's masses of people playing it, but it's men. It's mainly men. the main kit suppliers will be mass producing things. They're not making bespoke kit for different teams necessarily. They'll mass produce. It'll be set on a shelf. It might be licensed out to a local supplier, and then they're badged up and they're sent. So that's the typical kit model. And then even if they're doing sublimated, they're still working with a bigger factory that's doing loads and loads of quantities at a time. So then you come along and you've got women playing or girls playing, and you say, okay, well, they need to be shaped differently. They need to have different sizes. They need this. And my guess, this is not me talking to Kit, I'm just trying to think the way they do. That's just too hard. That was probably just tell your factory, oh, give me a women's cut. They probably have a standard block for that. No one's ever really thought about it. And so what was being done is any of the brands who were supposedly doing women's fit, they weren't doing it with us. They were doing it for us and kind of saying, that'll do. With Lacuna, it just seemed ridiculous. So what we did instead is we took a blank sheet of paper. I'm not from the kit industry. I just said, what do you want? So we went around to different women and girls at different levels of the game and around the world and just said, if you were to design your perfect cricket trouser, what would it look like? And, let's start with nice fabric that doesn't cling. Let's start with fabric that's not see-through. Also, cricket has a lot of different body types, which is really lovely, and a lot of cultures. So you don't have just kind of, oh, we need it tall and thin, or we need it whatever. So it was trying to get some options in there that if you needed to be on a team, you weren't stuck in really skinny trousers if you had a little bit more to you, or if you were tall, they weren't too short. So we really just started by saying, what would be your dream trouser? So, it was zip pockets that don't make your hips look big. It was room for pads underneath your trousers if you're playing out at a certain level. It was different lengths based on height. It was, again, a nice shape, a nice feel, a nice hand feel, high quality, sustainable, really beautiful features. So we just made the dream trouser, basically. And then back to your reference on whites, the other biggest fear wearing whites is periods. And so, it might be up for debate. The way I see the whites discussion, to me, you need period pants. You don't need to get rid of whites. Like, wearing navy trousers doesn't mean you don't bleed. And also in certain sports, like, if you're looking at tennis, if you're looking at cricket, and these others, wearing whites might be your dream because it means you've reached your pinnacle. You've gone to a test match, you're playing for your country. So that was probably the second piece of kit we created, was period pants that matched skin tones, so that if you had darker skin, you have darker pants, so that if you're wearing whites, that makes sense. So it's almost, that should be a piece of equipment and not just make a decision. So I think for us, that gives you an indicator. Every piece we've done has been with women sitting there talking about their experience. What is it like at their cricket pitch? What have they found uncomfortable? And what do they really dream of playing in? And every piece has been made like that. So we don't go to a standard block. We've made our own designs and have our own in-house design team that does everything for us.
And sizing for teens and adults is really difficult. And to get that precision fit, I mean, how many women did you have to interview or group research in order to get to where you got to? Because it's very interesting that you've gone to a lot of effort and thought behind the kits that you put together, all the way down to the underwear.
Sizing was something, I think, as a woman, particularly a middle-aged woman now, my body isn't what it used to be. And there's things that I don't do that I used to love to do. Like, I don't play tennis anymore because I don't want to be in a tennis skirt. Having something that fits your body and makes you feel good matters so much, whether you're my age or you're 11 or 12 and just kind of coming into yourself and feeling quite awkward. Or if you're top of your game performance athlete, you need something that's going to fit the way you need it. So we took a lot of care in getting the sizing right. One, we have a very, very, very good clothing designer who is an expert on women's sportswear. So she really understands the shape and size of women. We have a very good factory. We've had a few really good factories that we work with. But we actually went a step further, and that we actually had a day where we rented mannequins in every size, so that we've even taken our teamwear, our bespoke teamwear that's market price, nothing elaborate. And we fitted every single piece on every single mannequin of every size so that we know if you're getting a size 10, it's a size 10. And the tie always goes to the woman, and that if it's a little bit between a 10 and a 12, we'll make it a bit roomier in a lower size, because it always feels good to size down. You don't want to have to size up 2 sizes, right? That's always something that we hear from cricket women is, I had to get the little boys small, or I had to get if they did a women's size, I was an 18, I'm normally a 12. So getting accurate sizing is important in the psyche of women, and also in making sure that you order once and you don't have mistakes.
And I assume that it affects confidence and performance. I can only assume if you're wearing the right kit that fits right, you're not worried about your wardrobe disaster or what might happen, and you're more focused on the game than anything else.
100%. And, it's not just a female thing. I've talked to many male athletes and male cricketers who say, if I don't have my armband on the same way, there's a lot of superstition in cricket. But whether I've talked to performance rugby players, squash, other things where they say, if you're thinking about, in hockey, is my skirt up, or my pants hanging out, when I bowl, is my shirt showing my stomach? You might have modest dressing women who are thinking, I can't show up today because I just don't know if that's going to cover me well. These are things that might prevent you from playing. But if you're a performance athlete, just because you're playing for England doesn't mean you're not thinking of your body or how you look. I remember talking to one young woman who plays for, professional county cricket. And she said the first day she got to play at the Oval, she was wearing whites and she was on the Jumbotron. And she said, I looked up and I looked so awful that it should have been the best day of my career. And I went home and cried. Those are the things. Clothing should not do that to you. Clothing is an enabler. And if you're being distracted, it's going to affect your performance, whether you're 12 or you're, playing for England. So we hear that a lot from professional cricketers, as well as softball women or, kids starting out.
Many clubs still order unisex kit, I assume. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Leigh. What would you say to, I don't know, a treasurer maybe who's choosing the next season's supply?
It's a good question. And what we see, at the end of the day, cricket is a game in the sunshine with a bat and a ball, and it should be a happy place. And, never in history have we need the community more. A community cricket club can bring life, to a village or to an area, and it can be a really lovely place to be with your neighbors and your friends. And what we're seeing is clubs that are not kind of clocking that women and girls want to play cricket, or where they're a bit nervous about them being there, or they're just not thinking through their requirements. They may be losing out. What we hear a lot, you will have certain pockets of country where they're like, we don't want women and girls in our club. You do hear that in some places. Most places, what you hear, and I was at an event in Nottingham this weekend, it's, oh, no, we're doing the right thing. We're letting them play with the boys, and we're giving them the same kit as everyone else. We're making them feel equal. And these are very well-intentioned men who just, unless you're walking in our shoes, you don't really actually know. Well, if you've taken a girl who's scared of playing hardball and you've made her play against boys, she might just not come back. So giving choice is really important. But kit is another thing that what we've seen is a lot of times clubs will say, well, we gave them unisex, so we gave them women's cut, but they haven't looked to see what that looks like. And they've not asked the women, is this what you want? Does this feel good? And I think a lot of times you'll see that the girls and women just don't feel that they can speak up. So they just don't come, or they don't wear what they're meant to, or whatever. So what I would say is, I think there's this fear that you're going to have inequality if the girls and women are wearing something else. What we do, everything is made bespoke. So we do have one club in Surrey where they said, we need it to match the men's. Here's a men's top. Can you match it? We get that a lot where we need to match the colors. We can match anything. So if you want an exact replica of the men's design, but in a women's fit, in a Lacuna, branded item, we can 100% do that, and we'll work with any of the men's suppliers. So it doesn't need to be more expensive. It doesn't need to be more painful. It doesn't need to be anything complex. Also, we see a lot of the women's teams, they're happy, not that they necessarily should, they're happy to pay for their own tops. I've not come across a club that doesn't say, you know what, I'd pay 10 pounds more or 5 pounds more to not feel horrible. And, we're seeing even more, we're seeing the clubs that have started to add women and girls kit. The reason they're adding women and girls kit is because they're in a club that is far enough on their journey to say, actually, let's let them have it. It's not just because they got our kit. It's because the culture was right for them to get kit. What we've seen is their numbers just grow exponentially. And then you'll see the girls come along if they started with the women, or you'll see the women come along if you started with the girls. And then having this kit that they can rally around that says, oh, that gives us kind of our thing. And we always insist on in-person fittings so people find their size and they don't just wind up with whatever's in the bag. We see them, have these great sessions where they say, actually, the fitting session brought us so much together. And now there's women in our area who are actually driving to come to our club because they know it's a welcoming place. So I think for that treasure, I would say, if you're wanting your membership numbers to go up, if you're wanting your bar takings to go up, if you want the men to be allowed to play because the women are there too and they're letting their husbands out of the house, you want the kids to show up, this is actually how to breathe life and money into your club. Not to mention, once you start getting women and girls and new entrants into your club, then you can apply for funding. You can apply for grants from the ECB or from local authorities because you are getting people active. So I'd say there's nothing but upside for a treasurer in a club to just start thinking about this.
And I hope there's many of them listening today that take on your advice. So you're part of, and I hope I've said this right, So LDN, So London, I assume, on Regent Street.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, what does that space mean for you in terms of discovery, community, and sales? Because you've just said that everyone comes in for in-person fitting, so they're not just left to their own devices, so they feel comfortable. How does that work for you, Leigh?
Yeah, I mean, so London, which the fun thing about, so it's style of our own. So the concept was to give female brands, small brands who were doing really interesting, disruptive things in the female sports space, to give us a place of our own, because none of us are big enough to have, bricks and mortar, but also to give women and girls a space of their own in London where they could come in, play their game, maybe find a sport. There's an interactive area that can do anything. It can be cricket nets, it can be a football pitch, it can be, any kind of training ground. We've had Billie Jean King running tennis lessons in there. So the whole concept of this area where we could all come in as women has been so much fun. So Laura Youngson from Ida Sports had been thinking of this for years and thinking about applying for these opportunities on Regent Street or Oxford Street where there were empty shops. And this year she was able to work with MasterCard where they said, you know what, let's do it. And I don't think any of us really knew what to think going into it, but just said, we can't pass this up. As individual brands, it's not like you have a full kiosk. It's more that it's an interactive space and the shop managers will put different gear out based on different things. So right before the Rugby World Cup, it was all rugby. We had a cricket week and it was cricket. So the space has kind of moved and changed throughout the year or throughout the summer. I'd say for us as a brand, it was really important in that we have spent all of our time and resources in the product and being out at grassroots. We have on purpose not just set the dial really high on marketing and put all of our, limited money into that. We said we need to make this product perfect. Girls and women deserve it. We're not going to just make it flashy. So for us to have this opportunity where our brand is seen has been incredible. Now that I'm traveling around the country, as each of us travel around as part of the Lacuna team, a year ago, we were having to tell everyone who we were. Now they're like, oh my gosh, you're Lacuna. We know that. And so I think all of us who are in So have had that same experience of just getting a lot more visibility for our brands and such a good energy just in general around women's sport. This is something that's here to stay, but also clothing can be really fun and engaging and supportive around our sports.
Which metric makes you the proudest? Like returns, messages, repeat purchases, when teams finally get an aha moment? I'd love to know.
I would say my business partner, Katie, and I always say, we go everywhere for fittings. We've gone to Switzerland, we've gone to Scotland, we've gone all over England. The moment that you are at a fitting, there's always at least one person who says, you can't fit me. I know you can't fit me. I don't fit in anything. It's not going to work. And then literally, I think almost down to the individual, you see them dancing and strutting around in their Lacuna kit, and they're like, oh my gosh, it fits and it looks really good. I look good. And, that's maybe not a hard KPI, but that means we're doing something right. The fact that the other day, so we're working with the British blind cricket team, and we met them at the Metrobank final, and they were lovely people. And I'd never done a fitting with a blind team. And I thought, gosh, how are we going to do this? It was the biggest test of our product because they're not seeing it, they're feeling it. So they're like, oh my gosh, you don't have tags in the back. I have sensory issues. That's so good. And oh, this fabric feels good on me. And the fit, I feel confident. I feel like I'm safe. Those are the kinds of things we like to hear. I'd say the final piece is when you start getting calls from other clubs who said, oh, I saw this team, they looked amazing, or they're so happy in their kit. So it's the referrals, it's the, I found you because someone loves you. Those are the things that get us really excited.
And I can only assume that once someone's in your kit, Leigh, they love it to the point where they're telling everyone about it anyway.
Yeah, no, once they're in it, they stay in it. But what's important is we're also still always listening and making changes. So we're in the off season, we have done a survey of all of our customers, our teamwear customers, to see what they love and what they don't and what they need. And so we're making some tweaks on some fabrics, and we're making some tweaks on some styles, and we're adding a few new products that they wanted. So that continuous improvement is really important. I think as women, particularly women, but also girls, when we started, we're always seeing new entrants to the sport. But if you go back a few years, those women and girls who started then, maybe at softball, cricket, a lot of them have gotten better and they've gone on to hardball. And so, their needs of their kit have changed. So always listening and growing with the sport is what will keep us Lacuna and what will keep us representative of the women and girls playing the game.
What's been your least glamorous operations knot that you've had to untangle?
As sports begin, let's see. I mean, there's so many of just kind of getting things to the right place, the right time. I would say colors. Colors are always tricky, trying to match what a color in someone's mind versus a color that is actually on a garment. Well, now you've stumped me. I'll come back on that one.
That's totally fine. As a founder, what is one decision you'd repeat and one that you would change?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what's been, when you do a career switch and you go from being the top of your game and being respected and being known, and you just kind of do something, and then you switch completely, you tend, or at least I did, tended to doubt my instincts. And I remember my husband saying, why would you doubt your instincts? They've never let you down in business. You've always had a good, you've done very well. And it's like, yeah, but this is totally new. So what do I know about cricket? And what's interesting now is I go back to some of my hunches and some of my operational decisions on, we're not going to listen. I remember Katie and I going to a meeting with someone who was really lovely, who was giving us some good advice on kind of sports marketing from the men's side. And he gave us some very specific advice on what we needed to stop doing and what we needed to start doing based on his experience. And we walked out and we were kind of quiet and we looked at each other and we said, I don't think he's right for what we're doing. I think we've made the right decision. So I think having our early hunches and our decisions that were very much flying in the face of traditional kit suppliers, going with our gut on that, I'm really proud of. because we really haven't wavered, and we've actually been proven right on all of those. I think there were some early things that we thought, oh, everyone's going to want fancy sustainable kit from Portugal and they're going to buy everything there. The market's moved a bit because most people have gone to teams and they're not wearing whites as much. So we actually pivot away from making loads and loads of quantities of stuff, and we're more nimble now. So I'm proud of how we've managed listening to ourselves, listening to the market, and not getting caught up in the noise.
Yeah.
And I think probably what I would stop doing is, when you've come from a corporate environment and you're in an environment where the machine works and you're part of the machine, and yes, you're driving strategy and stuff, but you're always kind of supported in that. When it's yours, for me, I take everything to heart. Everything feels like if I make the wrong decision, I'm going to let people down, or I'm not doing this fast enough, or this is happening over here. And I think trying to distance yourself as an entrepreneur and not get too tied up in knots, but to try to keep your objective kind of executive mindset and just keep plugging away. Those are probably the two things of areas to work on, as well as things that I'm really proud of.
And ultimately you were creating a new category, right? And there's a lot to be said for gut instinct, because it hasn't quite been done many times before. And you're breaking into this new. What's next for Lacuna, and what do you hope will be what women's cricket will look like over the next 5 years?
I think what's been fun, and probably part of running your own business gives you a lot of flexibility and autonomy to build what you want. This started as a labor of love around cricket, but I haven't spent my career just kind of waiting to sell t-shirts, so Lacuna's always been more than a t-shirt. It's always been about creating a narrative within women's cricket that is not aggressive or judgmental towards the male game. It's not saying you didn't give us what we need. I think we have an opportunity as the market leader and kind of the first mover, and someone, we as a brand love working within the community of women's cricket, and our egos are not big, and probably the biggest joy is watching other pieces of the ecosystem come together to bring the sport ahead. I think being able to focus on the narrative around women's cricket and being able to take that broader into inclusive sportswear in general, we've worked with Tess Howard and others on what girls and women really want to wear in their sport. It's an issue in every sport. So what I hope is we're playing a role in this whole kind of groundswell of disruption. And, so is a marketplace for that, of people saying, here's what women actually want. Here's what they're telling us they need. And that in 10 years' time, we're looking at a marketplace where it's not unusual that there is a female choice of kit that looks like what a woman might want, and it's not just an adapted male kit.
What's the funniest story you've got, Leigh, about women's fit, or anything that you have built to date? Could be related to anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a laugh being out doing a fitting, because you just get people having fun and strutting around. We've had a lot of fun we do some design workshops with younger girls, because they may not be driven by fit concerns, but girls tend, and women too, we join things where, we're tribal, and we'll go with our friends, and we'll go in groups, and we'll do things that are fun and that make us feel welcome. So we've run some kit design or t-shirt design workshops with young girls. We did a big one up in Yorkshire with 150 girls as part of their Roses program. And we did one for a new team in Middlesex. And just watching little girls with their markers and their stencils and like drawing their perfect kit, there's a lot of joy. And then you see those girls proud to wear their t-shirt. That's their t-shirt. That's the one they made together. So yeah, I'd say what we're doing most days is fun.
Yeah. And it sounds like you'd have to bring a lot of sense of humor to girls who are looking for the perfect fit, if I was honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, not all of it's fun and games. There's definitely, the occasional person who might just feel really uncomfortable with the whole thing and have a lot to say. But, I'd say for the most part, what we see is people happy that we're there and feeling seen.
Yeah, of course. So my takeaway from today is that when kit fits, the confidence comes and girls and women stay in the game is what I'm hearing. And it looks like Lacuna shows how design precision can change that participation. I know that when I go to the gym, I work my best when I do have gym kit that I don't feel self-conscious in, if I was honest, or yoga kit that's fit for purpose if I was going to do yoga, for example. So I know firsthand what a big difference that can make. And I've seen that in my daughter and her friends as well. And it's a big missing piece of the puzzle that you're filling, if I was honest with you. Today, thank you very much, Leigh, for having an insightful conversation and for building what was missing in women's cricket. Before we go, I'd love for you to tell our listeners how they can find you online or learn more about your work.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Disha, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love what you're doing and what you're bringing to women. And it is a pleasure to be here with you and to tell our story. If you are interested in speaking to us at Lacuna, we can do bespoke kit for any age. We can do schools, we can do teams, we can do academies, we're doing national teams, we can do anybody because it's all bespoke and it's all designed in-house. So if you want to get in touch, you can write to us at teamwear@lacunasports.co.uk. We also have some beautiful things that can be worn for cricket or, playing golf or playing any sports. If you want to go to lacunasports.co.uk, have a look. And then probably the final place would be in our Instagram, which is Lacuna Sports UK. Go have a look. And if nothing else, just take some inspiration from other teams. You can see what it looks like to have kit that fits. You can see what's going on in women's cricket. And hopefully maybe today it's going to convince you to just go have a go. So find a local club, grab a friend. There's about a 20% increase year on year of girls and women cricket being offered in this country. And it's just good fun.
Thank you for that, Leigh. We'll add all the links mentioned today in the show notes. Do follow the TrailblazeHers on Instagram and LinkedIn or visit thetrailblazehers.com to stay updated on future episodes and behind the scenes content. Once again, I'm Disha Solanki with Leigh Burns, founder and CEO of Lacuna Sports. Thank you for listening.